Ambassador Hansol fixed his tie for the 10th time as he looked out the window of Earth's first faster-than-light ship. The massive space station ahead of them looked like a giant silver flower floating in space. This was humanity's first time attending the Galactic Conference, and he felt the weight of Earth's future on his shoulders. "Sir, we're ready to dock," said the pilot. "The alien representatives are waiting in the main hall." Hansol nodded and took a deep breath. He had practiced for this moment for months, but nothing could have prepared him for the real thing. The ship connected to the station with a soft click. As he walked through the shining hallway with his small team, Hansol saw creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some had blue skin, others had 4 arms, and a few even floated in the air. They all wore fancy clothes that showed their high positions. The main conference hall was huge. It looked like a giant theater, with rows of seats going up high. Each seat had screens and translation devices built into it. At the center was a round platform where speakers would stand. An alien with purple skin and silver eyes approached them. "Ah, the humans have finally arrived," he said in perfect English. "I am Coordinator Drax of the Drachnid Empire. We have been waiting for you." The way he said "waiting" made Hansol uncomfortable. Other aliens nearby started whispering and pointing at the human delegation. "Thank you for inviting Earth to join the Galactic Conference," Hansol said politely. "We are excited to learn from all of you and share what we know." A laugh echoed through the hall. A tall, thin alien stood up. "Share what you know. Your fastest ship took 3 weeks to reach this station. Our slowest cargo ships make the same trip in 2 days." More aliens joined in the laughter. Hansol felt his face get hot, but he kept his calm expression. This was exactly what his advisors had warned him about. Many alien species thought humans were too primitive to join the galactic community. "Speaking of slow ships," Coordinator Drax said with a smile that wasn't friendly, "perhaps you'd like to explain how your species plans to contribute to our galactic trade networks. The fastest human ship travels at what? 1/10 the speed of our standard vessels." Hansol walked to the central platform. The huge screens above showed his face to everyone in the hall. "Earth is young in space travel, yes," he admitted. "But we are learning quickly. In just 100 years, we went from our first airplane to reaching the stars. 100 years to achieve what most species do in 20, another alien called out. More laughter followed. But Hansol wasn't finished. "We may be behind in some areas, but humans are good at solving problems in new ways." New ways. Coordinator Drax interrupted. "There are no new ways in space travel. The laws of physics are the same for everyone. We have studied them for thousands of years. Your species is simply behind." Hansol gripped the edges of the speaking platform. He wanted to argue back, to defend Earth's honor, but he knew it would only make things worse. Instead, he smiled and said, "Then we look forward to learning from your experience." As he walked back to his seat, the whispers and laughs continued. But Hansol remembered something his grandmother used to say: "Those who laugh first don't always laugh last." He had no way of knowing then how right she would be, or that back on Earth, a 12-year-old girl was about to change everything. Jai-Ho sat cross-legged in her room, surrounded by floating holographic displays. Her virtual reality headset showed her a 3-dimensional spaceship engine that spun slowly in the air. Outside her window, the evening sun painted Seoul's skyline orange, but she barely noticed. She was too busy with her favorite game, Galaxy Ship Designer. "Jai-Ho, dinner time." Her father, Sunwoo, called from downstairs. "Just 5 more minutes, Dad. I'm almost done with the engine design." She adjusted some virtual dials, watching as the energy flow patterns changed color from red to green. Unlike other 12-year-olds who played games about fighting aliens or racing spaceships, Jai-Ho spent hours designing engine systems. While her classmates decorated their virtual ships with fancy weapons and cool paint jobs, she studied fuel efficiency and power distribution. Sunwoo appeared at her door, still wearing his Space Development Agency uniform. He watched his daughter work with a smile. As one of Earth's top spacecraft engineers, he had encouraged her interest in ships, even if it was just through games. "What are you working on today?" he asked, walking into the room. Jaiho's eyes lit up behind her headset. "I'm trying something new with the antimatter chamber," she said excitedly. "Look." She gestured at one of the floating displays, and it expanded to show detailed diagrams. Sun Wu nodded, though he didn't understand why his daughter was so interested in such complex things. The game was supposed to be for fun, but Jaiho treated it like serious research. "The game's physics engine is really good," Jaiho continued. "It uses real science. Did you know it was made by actual spacecraft engineers?" "Yes, honey. Some of my colleagues helped design it." Sun Wu remembered when the game was created 2 years ago. The Space Development Agency had released it to get young people interested in space technology. Jaiho stood up and walked through the holographic displays, pointing at different parts of her engine design. "See, everyone puts the antimatter injectors here." She pointed to one side. "But I thought, what if we put them in a circle instead? And then I added these quantum fold generators in between them." Sun Wu listened patiently. Most of what she said sounded like science fiction, but he loved seeing her so passionate about something. "The funny thing is," Jaiho said, scratching her head, "the game keeps showing really fast speeds when I do this. Much faster than any of the preset designs. I think it might be a bug." "That's interesting," Sun Wu said, not really paying attention. "But now it's dinner time. Your mother made your favorite noodles." Jaiho sighed and saved her design. As she took off her headset, the holograms disappeared. "Dad, do you think I could be a real spacecraft engineer someday? Like you?" Sun Wu ruffled her hair. "Of course. But first, you need to eat your dinner and do your homework." As they walked downstairs, Jaiho kept talking about her ideas. She didn't know that her simple question about becoming an engineer would be answered much sooner than anyone expected, and she certainly didn't know that her bug in the game wasn't a bug at all. In her room, the saved design file blinked quietly on her computer screen. Inside its code was a solution that would soon change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. 1 week after the Galactic Conference, Jaiho sat in her room playing with her spaceship design again. The afternoon sun streamed through her window as she moved virtual parts around in the air. She had been thinking about her engine design all week, especially during her boring math classes. "Maybe if I change the angle here," she mumbled to herself, turning one of the antimatter injectors slightly. The holographic display flashed red, then green, then showed numbers that made no sense to her. Jaiho frowned and checked the game's built-in calculator. According to the numbers, her ship design could go faster than anything in the game's database. She had seen this happen before, but this time the numbers were even bigger. "That can't be right," she said, double-checking her work. She had placed the antimatter injectors in a perfect circle, with quantum fold generators between them. It was different from how everyone else did it, but she thought it looked prettier this way. The energy flow made a nice pattern, like a flower blooming. She pressed the simulation button. The virtual engine hummed to life, its energy streams flowing in beautiful spiral patterns. The speed calculator started showing impossible numbers again. "Dad always says to try things 3 times to be sure," Jaiho remembered. She reset the simulation and ran it again. And again. Each time, the same impossible speeds appeared. Jaiho saved her work and ran downstairs to find her father. Sun Wu was in the kitchen, reading reports on his tablet while drinking coffee. Dad, can you look at something?" Jaiho tugged at his sleeve. "I think I found a big bug in the game." Sun Wu looked up from his work. "Honey, I'm a bit busy with these reports. The Space Development Agency is trying to improve our ships after the Galactic Conference. Please, Dad, it will only take a minute. Something weird is happening with my engine design." Sun Wu sighed but smiled. He could never say no when his daughter was excited about something. Okay, show me quickly. They went back to Jaiho's room, where she put on her headset and shared the display so her father could see it too. She pulled up her engine design and started the simulation. At first, Sun Wu watched with his usual patient smile, but as the numbers started appearing, his smile faded. He leaned forward, squinting at the display. Jaiho, how did you come up with this design? He asked, his voice suddenly serious. I just thought it would look pretty if everything was in a circle, she said. And then I added the quantum things between them because the energy flows looked nice that way. Is something wrong? Sun Wu stared at the design, his coffee forgotten in his hand. After 20 years of working on spacecraft engines, he had never seen anything like this. The design was so simple, yet it suggested speeds that should be impossible. Jaiho, he said slowly, I need you to save this design and send it to my work computer. Right now. But what about the bug? Jaiho asked, confused by her father's serious face. Sun Wu looked at his daughter with new eyes. I don't think it's a bug, he said quietly. I think you just discovered something very important. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number with shaking hands. Dr. Yunme. Yes, I know it's Sunday, but you need to see something. No, it can't wait until tomorrow. This changes everything. Dr. Yunme's office at the Space Development Agency was usually quiet on Sundays, but today, the room buzzed with energy as she stared at the holographic display floating above her desk. Sun Wu stood nearby, watching her face carefully. You're telling me, Dr. Yunme said slowly, that your 12-year-old daughter designed this in a video game. Sun Wu nodded. Jaiho said she arranged it this way because it looked pretty. She thought the circular pattern would make a nice design. Dr. Yunme walked around the hologram, studying it from all angles. Her usually neat gray hair was messy from running her hands through it in excitement. The circular arrangement of antimatter injectors, it's so simple, and putting quantum fold generators between them. She shook her head in wonder. Could it really work? Sun Wu asked. The game shows impossible speeds, but games can be wrong. Dr. Yunme pressed some buttons on her desk. New calculations appeared in the air. The game uses real physics equations. That's why we released it, to help young people learn about real spacecraft engineering. She pointed to the numbers floating in front of them. These calculations are correct. Your daughter accidentally solved a problem that has puzzled our best engineers for years. She sat down heavily in her chair. Do you know why alien ships are so much faster than ours, Sun Wu? They have better technology, he answered. No, Dr. Yunme said. They have different technology. They've been doing things the same way for thousands of years. Their antimatter engines all follow the same basic design. She gestured at the hologram. But this is completely different. How different? Dr. Yunme's eyes sparkled. According to these numbers, a ship with this engine could be 5 times faster than the fastest alien vessel. Maybe more. Sun Wu felt dizzy. That's impossible. That's what makes it brilliant, Dr. Yunme said. Sometimes the best ideas come from minds that don't know what's supposed to be impossible. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Seoul skyline. A child who didn't know the right way to build an engine just invented a better one. She turned back to Sun Wu. We need to start building a prototype immediately. But we must keep this secret. If the alien species find out, should I tell Jaiho? Sun Wu asked. Dr. Yunme thought for a moment. Not yet. Let her keep playing with her game. She might come up with more ideas. She smiled. But maybe buy her some ice cream on the way home. She just changed the future of human space travel, even if she doesn't know it yet. As Sun Wu left the office, Dr. Yunme looked at the design again. She remembered the reports from the Galactic Conference, how the aliens had laughed at Earth's slow ships. She allowed herself a small smile. Let them laugh, she whispered to the empty office. They won't be laughing much longer. Outside, the sun was setting over Seoul. In her room at home, Jae-ho was already working on a new design, completely unaware that she had just made history. Deep beneath the Space Development Agency's main building, a new laboratory had been built. The walls were thick concrete, and special shields blocked all signals from getting in or out. Inside this secret room, two scientists were looking at a complex set of blueprints. "The child's design is remarkable," Mayray said, adjusting her glasses as she studied the holographic display. "We've been working on it for 3 months now, and I still can't believe how simple and elegant it is." Her colleague, Da-hyun, nodded as he made adjustments to the virtual model. "Did you see the latest simulation results? The energy output is even higher than we first thought." The project, named Butterfly Effect, had become Earth's most important secret. Only 10 people knew about it, and they all worked in this underground lab. The rest of the world, including their families, thought they were working on regular engine improvements. "Dr. Yunmai is coming today," Mayray said, checking her watch. "She wants to see the first physical prototype." As if on cue, the heavy security doors opened, and Dr. Yunmai walked in with Sunwoo. They both wore special badges that changed color every hour for security. "How is our butterfly growing?" Dr. Yunmai asked, walking to the center of the lab where a real engine was being built. Da-hyun pulled up the latest test results. "The antimatter containment is stable. The quantum fold generators are working exactly as Jae-ho's game design predicted. We've never seen anything like it." Sunwoo looked at the partly built engine with pride and amazement. His daughter had drawn this in a game, and now it was becoming real. "Speaking of Jae-ho," Mayray said, "she sent another design through the game's feedback system yesterday. She still thinks she's just finding bugs, but her new ideas about energy flow are brilliant." Dr. Yunmai smiled. "Keep tracking her suggestions. She sees things differently from us trained engineers. That's her strength." Suddenly, alarms started flashing on one of the screens. The prototype engine was giving off unexpected readings. "The quantum field is expanding," Da-hyun shouted, rushing to the controls. Mayray quickly typed commands into her computer. "It's not dangerous," she said after a moment. "Actually, this is amazing. The field is stronger than we expected. According to these numbers, we could reach speeds we didn't think possible." The team gathered around her screen, watching as new calculations appeared. The impossible was becoming possible, right in front of their eyes. "How soon can we install this in a test ship?" Dr. Yunmai asked. 2 weeks, Da-hyun answered. "Maybe less. Captain Yumki is already training in the simulator." Dr. Yunmai nodded. "Good. Earth has been quiet long enough. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." She turned to Sunwoo. "Your daughter will be famous someday when we can finally tell everyone the truth." Sunwoo thought about Jae-ho, who was probably playing with her game right now, still thinking she was just having fun. "She doesn't care about being famous," he said. "She just wants to build beautiful engines." As the team went back to work, the prototype engine hummed quietly in its testing chamber. Soon, it would power humanity's first real step into the stars. Captain Yumki sat in the pilot's seat of the experimental ship Dream Chaser, his hand steady on the controls. Through the front window, he could see Earth getting smaller as the ship moved away from the space station. The new engine hummed behind him, sounding different from any spacecraft he had ever flown. "All systems are green," he reported to Mission Control. "Beginning acceleration test in 3 minutes." Back on Earth, in the underground control room, Dr. Yunmai and her team watched their screens carefully. Mayray and Da-hyun checked the engine readings, while Sunwoo monitored the ship's structure. "Remember, Captain," Dr. Yunmai spoke into her microphone. "This is just a test. If anything feels wrong, abort immediately." "Understood," Yumki replied. He had spent hundreds of hours in the simulator. But this was different. This was real. 2 minutes to test. In her room at home, Jae-ho was doing homework, unaware that her game design was about to make history. Her father had been working late a lot lately, but he had promised to take her to the Space Museum this weekend. 1 minute, Yun-Ki announced. The ship was now past the moon's orbit. Starting final preparations. Dr. Yun-Mi held her breath. This was the moment of truth. Either Jai-Ho's design would work in real space, or 30 seconds, Yun-Ki said. He pressed several buttons, and the engine's hum grew louder. Quantum fold generators activating. The screens in mission control showed energy building up in the circular antimatter injectors. The pattern looked exactly like Jai-Ho's game design, a perfect flower of pure power. 10 seconds, Yun-Ki reported. His voice was calm, but his heart was racing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He pushed the activation lever forward. The universe seemed to blur around the ship. Stars stretched into lines of light. The engine roared with power, but the sound was smooth and steady, exactly as the simulations had predicted. It's working, Mireille shouted, staring at her readings. The speed, it's beyond anything we've ever seen. Yun-Ki checked his instruments. The numbers didn't seem real. Control, are you seeing these readings? We see them, Dr. Yun-Mi confirmed, her voice shaking with excitement. You're going faster than any human ship in history. Faster than any alien ship, too. The test continued for 5 minutes. The Dream Chaser flew further in those few minutes than most ships could travel in days. When Yun-Ki finally slowed down, the ship had covered more distance than any Earth vessel had ever traveled in a single jump. But they weren't alone out there. Hidden behind a small asteroid, a Drachnid probe had been watching. Its sensors had recorded everything, and now it was sending an encrypted message back to its masters. In the control room, the celebration was interrupted by an urgent alert from Earth's space monitoring system. Dr. Yun-Mi, Da-Hyun called out, his face suddenly serious. We detected a transmission. Someone was watching us. The room fell silent. They all knew what this meant. Their secret was out. How long until the Drachnids respond? Dr. Yun-Mi asked. At their fastest speed. About 2 days, Sun Wu answered. Dr. Yun-Mi straightened her back. Then we have 2 days to prepare. It's time to tell the world what we've achieved. She looked at Sun Wu. And it's time to tell Jai-Ho what she really did. The Galactic Conference Chamber was in chaos. Hundreds of alien representatives shouted and argued with each other. At the center of it all stood Coordinator Drax, his purple skin darker than usual with anger. We demand answers, he shouted at Ambassador Hansol. Our probe detected a human ship moving at impossible speeds. You have been developing secret weapons. Hansol stood calmly at the speaker's platform, looking very different from his nervous first appearance 3 months ago. Not a weapon, he said clearly. A new type of engine. And we are happy to share how we made it. The room went quiet. This was not the response they had expected. Share it, Drax asked suspiciously. Why would you share such valuable technology? Because, Hansol said with a small smile, its creator wants everyone to have it. She believes space travel should be for everyone. The main screens in the chamber lit up with a live video feed from Earth. It showed a simple classroom, where a young girl sat at her desk, wearing her school uniform. She looked nervous but excited. This is Jai-Ho, Hansol announced to the shocked audience. She is 12 Earth years old, and she designed our new engine while playing a video game. The silence in the chamber was complete. Then it exploded into noise again, but this time with disbelief rather than anger. Impossible, someone shouted. A child. Another voice called out. This is a trick, Drax declared. Dr. Yun-Mi stepped onto the platform beside Hansol. It is no trick, she said. Jai-Ho designed the engine in our space engineering game. She arranged antimatter injectors in a circle because she thought it looked pretty. She put quantum fold generators between them because she liked the pattern it made. She pressed a button, and Jiho's original game design appeared on the screens next to the girl's face. While we adults were stuck thinking about the right way to build engines, Dr. Yunmei continued, Jiho saw a new way. She didn't know it was supposed to be impossible, so she made it possible. In the classroom on Earth, Jiho looked at her father, who stood nearby. Dad, are they really using my game design? Sun Wu nodded, smiling proudly. They are. You've changed everything, honey. Back in the conference chamber, the alien representatives were studying the design with growing amazement. Many of them were engineers themselves, and they could see the brilliance of its simplicity. We offer this design freely to all species, Hansol announced. Earth believes that progress should benefit everyone. All we ask is that you remember this lesson. Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places, and perhaps, he paused, looking directly at Coordinator Drax, you should think twice before laughing at others. Jiho's image smiled shyly at the gathered aliens. Hi, she said in her clear voice. I'm working on an even better design now. Would you like to see it? The chamber, which had heard countless speeches from the greatest minds in the galaxy, fell silent again. Then, one by one, the alien representatives stood and began to applaud. In her classroom on Earth, Jiho blushed at the applause coming through the video feed. She didn't fully understand why her game design was so important, but she was happy that everyone liked it. 6 months after the revelation at the Galactic Conference, Earth had changed dramatically. Spaceships with Jiho's engine design flew regularly between the stars. The same aliens who had once mocked Earth's slow vessels now came to learn from human engineers. Jiho sat in her new office at the Space Development Agency, surrounded by holographic displays just like in her room at home. But these weren't game screens anymore. They were real spacecraft designs. A small nameplate on her desk read, Special Advisor for Engine Development. Are you ready for the meeting? Sun Wu asked, entering her office. He still couldn't believe his daughter had her own office right next to his. Jiho nodded, saving her latest work. I think I found a way to make the engines even faster, she said excitedly. And guess what? Some alien children sent me their designs too. They're really good. After Earth shared Jiho's engine design, space agencies across the galaxy had started their own programs for young designers. Children from different species now shared ideas and designs through a special network, seeing possibilities that their adult engineers had missed. Dr. Yunmei appeared at the door. The Drachnid delegation is here, she announced, and you'll never believe who they brought with them. Jiho followed her father and Dr. Yunmei to the conference room. Inside, Coordinator Drax stood with a small purple-skinned child who looked about Jiho's age. This is Kyran, Drax said, gentler than anyone had ever heard him speak. She has some ideas she would like to share with Earth's young engineer. Kyran stepped forward shyly. I played with your engine design in my simulator, she said to Jiho. But I thought, what if we added some swirls to the energy flow? Like this. She pulled up a holographic display showing her modification. Jiho's eyes widened with excitement. That's beautiful. I never thought of curving the quantum fields that way. The two girls quickly forgot about the adults in the room, lost in their discussion of engine designs and energy patterns. They didn't care about politics or species differences. They just saw the beauty in the way things worked. Ambassador Hansol watched from the doorway, smiling. Who would have thought? He said quietly to Dr. Yunmei. Our greatest diplomatic achievement came from children playing with spaceships. Outside the building, regular ships took off and landed, their engines humming with Jiho's design. But in the conference room, two young engineers from different worlds were already planning something better. What if we made the energy flow look like a dance? Kyran suggested, moving her hands in a spiral. Or like music, Jiho added, adjusting the holographic display. See how the patterns could match sound waves. As the girls worked, their designs floating in the air between them, the adults watched in wonder. The galaxy was changing, becoming smaller and friendlier. And it all started because a human child didn't know that something was supposed to be impossible. In the years that followed, people would often ask Jai-Ho how she had revolutionized space travel. She always gave the same answer: "I just thought it would look pretty." Sometimes that was all it took to change the universe.